So I said to myself, I'm gonna video record a video on Zhukov, Khrushchev. That's basically ex-Soviet leaders, the ex-Soviet leadership. You already know my name, you know who I am. And today I decided I'm going to go and video record some as Slovenian police would refer to as not historical with the psychiatrist Peter Kauš, but hysterical. They had expressions for everything I would try to magnify pertaining to myself, to, based on brainwash, create, you know how you see sometimes people that they just go off in front of the camera and stuff, and they pull out stuff that is just out of this world. This is all brainwash, folks. And so they created in my head like lunacy poetry, associations with the words, with the certain words. That's what the novel masters, so-called police investigators, became specialized. Basically, they brainwash on a certain issue to completely dement you, so that you would not even think about the thing. And so I am going to decide. I decided I'm going to video record today about what also I was used for as a baby, and it's quite interesting because Khrushchev died in 1971 on the September, and I was born on December in 1971, and I was browsing actually Georgy Zhukov. Georgy Zhukov was a famous Russian general who fought Nazi Germany and also Imperial Japan. He was much deserved for Joseph Stalin's victory in the World War II, the so-called victory. I think the one who was really deserved was United States, which shipped supplies to Russia, to the Soviet Union, etc., and disembarked over there in Normandy and so on. But here's what I have to say about the two, the Zhukov, the Khrushchev, and also many others that I did not even bother to investigate, simply because it makes no sense for me to investigate. These people absolutely are deceased, they died, but I'm still here, I'm still alive, and to me it doesn't make sense to skip, to allow to issues as mentioned here, as stated here, to just go into air undocumented, without people knowing, understanding what this case was all about, why I was such a important baby. I was born in 1971, on December the 9th in 1971. Khrushchev died, in a parenthesis, in September of 1971. Yeah, I don't even know what they say about this stuff here. I don't know anything about this stuff here. I didn't even read through this stuff, but the Nikita Khrushchev, there's one thing I did read about him, is basically the death. That was on September 11, 1971. Nikita Khrushchev died So I can say to you from my personal experience that this man right here was a very, very, very young man. Very young man after his death. This man had an attitude of a 20 years old young man who loved to joke a lot. He was in a very, very strong health, in my opinion. And yeah, I would say that he did not die. I would say that he lived for at least another 10 years. I remember this man to be very playful, but also very different. It's maybe in a few years down the road he was not as nice anymore. And he was not as nice anymore after I was labeled indefinitely as an enemy of the Soviet Union, of the Russia. And pretty much identical issue pertained to Zhukov, Georgy Zhukov. This is this man here, whom photo I found. He died in 1974. This is the man right here. And from what I recall about his death, what I can say to you about his death is that I have a feeling that this man walked out unharmed. I don't think that this man died. I think that I might have witnessed his death and his walking out of the room, literally. It was something like this, unless the Russians faked the whole thing, but I don't think they faked. You see, there are still people who know about this stuff. They can witness. Actually, they need to be interrogated about this stuff. And you do have them inside of the royal family in Britain. Now we're going to take some family portrait like this. And what I can say to you is that their main specialty during the Cold War was espionage. Well, you might have come to the conclusion that I'm insane, that the stuff I'm talking about is a lunacy, that this is not true, that this is just not. This is the truth. The stuff I'm talking to you about is the truth. Unless the Russians faked his death, and it appears to me that there was a Zhukov after 1974 that continued to live. My account is probably will give you a green light that this man did not just die in 1974. This man hung around for a few more years. There were two reasons for Russians to have their presidential figures as well as political figures like famous like Georgy Zhukov, let's say, removed from the public eye. The one I became very, very familiarized with is the presence, the Illuminati presence, Western Illuminati presence in in Russia. This is the main reason is the people that you see there, they had a special clearance. These people traveled across the border completely unrestricted, without any restrictions that otherwise would apply to normal diplomats, politicians. Don't mention regular people, because regular people, well, at least if you are from Yugoslavia or you are from some other location, they could make you disappear. If you're a Polak or anything, you go from Yugoslavia and they found you inappropriate, they could have you go to Gulag they could make you disappear. You were gone of the picture. It could be your first and your last trip to visit Moscow, like a tourist trip. There are people who embarked on a tourist travel to Moscow and they never returned back. They were just gone, eaten by the night. And nobody ever find out about these people. We were warned about this stuff all the time too, by the teachers in the school, about how we have to behave and this and that and so on. And maybe even more in my class, because of the degree of the espionage pertaining to my case. For instance, right there is a Princess Anne. Right there is Prince Andrew, and right there you have a Charlie. So nice. I'm gonna just go and I'm gonna make a little bit of this kind of stuff here. I remember the days when Andrew was simply a boy. He was not a boy because, man, I was just a baby. But he was a teenager. He was still a teenager. He was still a boy. I remember the days when Princess Anne finally got this kind of authorization to actually independently, next to other political figures or a family member such as Prince Charles, had the ability to travel behind the curtain. These people traveled behind the curtain completely unrestricted. Totally. The doors to them were totally opened. Were they welcome there? No. And this brings us to the main reason why they removed the political figures. In the Soviet Union, it was like this. Is basically, I alone was explained by this presidential Soviet figures. You either die or we really make you disappear. It is just as simple as that. When your day comes, the state official told you. What they would do is they would always have a KGB in the background that observed absolutely everything, including the presidential figures and so on. And you, as this presidential figure, whatever the case might be, a retired politician or whatever, when your day was due, you had to go. Nobody really tested about what would it be like if you did not want to go. So I don't think I have to explain to you. That was the Soviet Union. They make you fucking go. So if they wrote in the media that you're dead and there was a funeral, then you were dead. But that was just not the case. The British royals knew about this stuff, and this is why I was used as a spy. This was also one of the job assignments they gave me, was to actually identify me, using me as a baby to identify if certain Soviet leaders did die or they did not die. Therefore, the people that were involved in MK Ultra, that was so important, such a paramount importance to the British, to involve as high figure, a foreign high figure, as many as possible, and me, in absolutely everything, in every fucking state affair that went on, in life of absolutely everybody. So that when there was in question somebody and they really wanted to know about, they would give me, I had a Prince Andrew, he needs to explain to you this shit. Prince Charles, Prince Philip was big back then, giving me certain pictures about certain people, you know, and they would really appreciate it, you know, if these people, did you see them, was the question. And we understood each other very well. The magnitude of my case is actually bigger than a magnitude of any other political, including royals, figure in the history of the world. That's why I am so disgusted with a conduct, with a royal conduct, Illuminati conduct that pertained to my case after I was labeled even as insane in 2012 and thrown into the psychiatric hospital that I don't say twice, also in 2015, end up running from what I would not even call as a homeland, Slovenia, but where the home of my parents is. Almost I made it to the Moscow. What the fuck can I say? You heard about the case of Harvey Lee, killer of the Kennedy, who ended up inside of the Russia. But how far did this case have gone when compared to Harvey Lee Oswald? I mean, you don't have any kind of disgrace? I mean, you don't feel disgraced, embarrassed by this? You forgot about the pictures, the people that you were asking me as my older brothers, guardians, family. If I've seen this uncle still around and so on, you forgot about that stuff, and you did go that far to see, hear, know nothing. Andrew claimed that I was the one who killed him, Zhukov. Now, Andrew was a teenager when Zhukov got his funeral. But years back, maybe he was trying to remind me of that stuff. I don't know. Yes, Zhukov literally was involved in this. Zhukov liked me. You're going to say, but this is crazy. No. I was 2 years and a half of age when Zhukov died. Zhukov died in June of 1974. And in terms of espionage, the ability to discern people, to understand what went on, because of the constant threat, probably because of the violence that went on, because of absolutely chaos, and because of because of the type of lifestyle, I would say. My months were maybe equal to years in terms of human development. Literally. Because, you know, when I had, let's say, Prince Charles, or Prince Philip, or Prince Andrew, or Princess Anne, that would travel. Sometimes they didn't travel. Sometimes they had their state people they would send on these funerals if there was notable person that died and so on. And this was not only about the funerals, this was also about other stuff. When I had these people asking me about whether I saw this man, this, whatever, these are also the people, talking about the British royals, you know, age-wise. These are also the people that would brief me in exactly the same way as if you work for the CIA or you work for the FBI as an adult, or you work for MI5, right? You have in Britain, whatever you have. Or you come home and the wife comes and he tells you, okay, today the job was whatever, blah, 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 blah. Or you go and you stress issues to your honey, whatever. But absolutely like tick, 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 you know? Like you would be typing the shit. In exactly the same way, they were updating me since I was, I don't know, man. When I was 11 months old, I already knew about the stuff that went on. So in terms of 26 months, this is only 26 months. In terms of 26 months, I was already a monster baby when it comes to espionage. I was updated with absolutely everything about the uncles, whom they saw, what they saw, and so on. And the same thing pertained to the funeral of the General Zhukov. For the British, General Zhukov was dead, gone. For Americans and for the British, Khrushchev was gone, he was dead. Maybe because he said that he's going to bury them. But for me, based on my observation, these uncles were not dead. There was another problem with this issue. The biggest reason why they were removing these politicians, it was not because they were no longer, of use, they were of such an age. Yeah, that too. They did not want to demonstrate weakness in the Soviet Union. Probably. The main reason for removal of these people from the I'm gonna refer to that as a camera. Camera is big. Fucking camera issue is huge. The main reason was that Soviets, when I say Soviets, Russians, did not like Western interference. They knew that this was espionage. They were not stupid. They knew that my case was espionage, and I was a British baby. They knew that I liked Americans and British and Germans and Italians and Spain. They knew about this stuff. And the big problem was a baby that was dedicated to them in their element, with a people like Georgy Zhukov, who was very contradictory personality. He was not very pleased with the Soviets. Probably under the right circumstances, with the man who would... He had quite a resentment with the communism. He was not exactly the communist figure, as you know already, all of you. That's basically settling to another side, switching the sides, the table. He was limited in his age, in his abilities, but he had, just like myself, influence on younger people, on more, young people that were involved in this and who witnessed this stuff. You understand? So, Moscow communists were not thrilled about people like Zhukov or myself, even that I was a baby. Josip Broz Tito also was not, unless it was about money, expensive gifts, and more than gifts, weaponry. Soviet Union, I should say Yugoslavia, Soviet Union, just like Yugoslavia, and Yugoslavia, just like a Soviet Union, they lived from the freebies. They got cars, how to manufacture them, everything, medications, fighter jets, planes that you see that they are so proud about, Russian planes. Absolutely everything was coming from Germany, America. This is not a new kid on the block. They had this kind of stuff already going on before, but with my arrival to this world, this really went into the fifth gear, because Americans and British, French, Italians, absolutely everybody realized the potential of having a baby that is actually your spy, that's actually so much dedicated to you, from completely different element, from completely another world. That's why they invested enormously. That's why all of a sudden, the industry exploded, and it was all kinds of, the Soviet Union, Yugoslavia, all of a sudden, they started to technologically so develop and develop and develop and develop. This was a very, very promising espionage case. And it didn't go all the way like this all along, because eventually it became totally unbearable. Their attitude was becoming completely insane, and it eventually exploded in war. Ethnic war in the Soviet Union and ethnic war in Yugoslavia. Ethnic war in the Soviet Union exploded in a very different way than it did in Yugoslavia because of the Ukrainians. Ukraine had to be disarmed first. Ukraine was a problem. They have nuclear bombs. Otherwise, we would probably see identical story to the one on the Balkans. Yeah, and so with the people like Zhukov and the baby that is actually lobbying for America, for the Germany in Moscow, among this Russian Illuminatis, Soviet Illuminatis, you had everything there, and Latvian and Estonian and Polish and Czech and Kazakh, Uzbek. Everything was not a good thing. For them, it was a very, very bad news. And so now the problem is that when you start to have this kind of uncles on the picture, you get in trouble. So what you do is you tell them, hey, sorry man, but we decided that your day came, and that means that you died next month, or in 2 months we have you dead, or in 6 months we have you dead. This is exactly the way it was. I even witnessed to this practice, Soviet practice. They even told me about this stuff, that when the day comes, this was just a normal practice in a Soviet Union. Now, I was not the only spy who was coming with a conflicting information in respect to Russian deceased politicians, figures. They had also others that through this case, this is why this was so great, because they get to meet ordinary people, all kinds of people, and you know, when you give under the table few rubles, dollars, whatever extra, it helps. No, in a Soviet Union, I have to say to you, there was no dollars and there was no Deutschmarks, but in Yugoslavia they were. Prince Andrew would also explain to you about that stuff, because he, you know, these kids, they learned everything from this case. Yes, I was a baby spy. I was literally a baby spy. I was already a spy when I was a baby. And in terms of age, this was like years. Baby gets developed as much as time you devote one. If you devote one a lot of time, under very insane circumstances, I guess, that baby can be a monkey spy for you. You can train him to be a monkey spy. There you go. You can train him maybe to spy on your mom or on your dad. I am just kidding with this stuff. But this definitely is the truth, that baby can tell you, depending on how you treat one, a whole more information, even if joked up through the subconscious mind, a whole lot more information than what you could give a credit for. So, with that being said, I remember discussions of the Princess Anne. I remember the discussions of Charles, when he would be, they did not, before not, but during course of this case of mine, they started to travel to Soviet Union even on their own. I remember when they would go, they would, talking about the Philip, Elizabeth train, a Russian mentality on, you know, also on independent, there's like as independent trip of their children to the Russia. And, you know, Charles was completely category for himself. And, you know, Princess Anne was the second one. And then I remember Andrew. Andrew was really like a monkey. He was like, Andrew was just, he just wanted to be everywhere. He just wanted to be absolutely everywhere, all the time, everywhere. And he was the one who reported to me absolutely about everything, in a very, very serious way. Maybe, I think so, they were using him because he was the youngest. So because he was the youngest, he more looked maybe like me, and it was maybe easier for me to interact with him. And so I also remember when he did his trip to the Moscow and stuff. He boasted about that stuff to the Russia independently and so on. That it did that kind of stuff. It was the thing and so on. They were discussing with me absolutely everything. They were discussing with me absolutely everything. Now here is the age of this. He is 12 years older than myself. You know, 12 years older than myself. Now the advert. We're not going to be discussing the advert today. This is 12 years older than myself. So imagine, he was a 14 years and a half old when General Zhukov died. Georgy Zhukov, oh, look at that. He is so serious. I read that, what did they say here? I read somewhere that he is no longer a royalty. Oh, there you go. There you have it, Charlie. Charlie is much older than myself. Charlie is 24 years senior than myself. This almost goes into the category of shit. Let's make it 11 here. Let it be. And what exactly did I said here? That's I'm going to give him a 22. And very, very, very important, even more important than anybody, was a Princess Anne. I was very, very attached to her. Very, very attached to her. Oh shit, that one surprised me. She is much older than what I thought it would be the case. That actually really surprised me. That's like 22. Okay, I'm going to give this one here 23. I'm going to give her 22. I'm actually surprised because I thought that she was younger than that. I was pretty sure that she was younger than that. She was just less. She was not as independent as Charles, Philip, obviously. She was a woman. She was a lady. Why don't you guys go and explain a little bit your fuck up, your blunder, basically, the way you... Yes, yes, of course. He did. He had his leadership. It was Prince Edward was very nice. He had his turn also. But I really remember Andrew. Edward was very much used also to connect with me, but this is the way they did it. It all went down based on age. So practically would have to break down on Edward, that was the main figure who would communicate with me. It did with Edward and it did with the Prince Andrew, but Prince Andrew was just everywhere. He was just absolutely everywhere. So this is how they were doing this espionage. This is how the espionage was done. In case you wondered about how the hell would that be possible, how do you remember these things, how the hell could you possibly remember these things, what the fuck are you talking about, man? Well, I happen to be on a political podium for almost 53 years, and that's not a lot of people that can say that you are out there as a politician. All right, 52 years. For 52 years, interacting with the presidential figures such as American presidents, Russian, Soviet, British royals and Japanese royals and so on. There aren't many of you that, I'm not going to say that you had this kind of honor, because for me this was not an honor at all. You see, I came to the conclusion that it was not up to me. It was up to you guys, Illuminatis. You Illuminatis, it was up to you. You did. What you made out of it is what you get now. And what exactly have you made out of it, man? Barricaded with the police in this house, throwing my father at home for elderly people with the idea to cause as much harm as possible to me. His life was misery. I ended up inside of the psychiatric hospital. I was physically attacked even by some Illuminatis inside of this house, restrained by the police, assaulted, tortured inside of my own home. You see, it was not about me. As you said, you guys said it's all for you. It's for you. It's all about you. No. It was not about me at all. It was about the impression that you people made, and you did this with the facts. I am just totally, I don't know how you say that, astounded that you have gone as far as this, because this case became really bizarre because of your criminal attitude toward me. I'm not going to say you didn't have the right, because it's a bit late to talk about who had what kind of rights to do what, but you really screwed up. You screwed up your own Western world, your Western democracy, the way your conduct was toward me. Those who participated in MK Ultra remember you even about you're asking me about who do I think I am, etc. Well, I never thought about myself a lot. I just wanted to have something out of my life, but you really pushed me over the limits. And now really, as I stated, now it's too late to discuss about. Now it's more about to discuss about what you have done, not about. I am not going to even forget the Prince Charles. He confessed, he cried into my face like a baby, basically, together with the Prince William. What a rat you have to be, man. For you to say to somebody like myself that I must not forget that even if you did certain things that you're not supposed to, that I must not forget that you continue to keep me on the picture and so on. So now, because obviously you didn't kill me, I should actually express gratitude, thankfulness to you for, I don't even know for what, for my being alive, for getting 4 hours of shit sleep a day, battling cancer, broken spine, penniless situation, psychiatric persecution, police stalking, attacking all over the place. What the fuck exactly? Maybe father that is 3/4 dead over there, and whom you have used, talking about you British royals and about royals in general, Illuminatis involved in this case, to completely break my spine and put me on a fucking wheelchair permanently, together with the Slovenian police, with the Slovenian politicians. There isn't much to thank you for. There really isn't much to thank you for. It just happened so that it did not happen the way you scum have anticipated it would develop. Prince Charles, together with Prince William, insisted in 2000, when it became evident this shit is going to come out, beginning 2018 and 2019, 2020, whenever they came here to our house, that despite all and so on, giving us some freaking free advice about the stuff that's good to buy, about the stuff that you shouldn't buy, a free health advice that you should go out there and walk every fucking day, and the food that you should eat is penniless. stuff the way it should be and the way it should not be. That this case is really not about me. This is about what you left inside of this home. This is about your legacy. This is the way you created the circumstances for yourself, basically, because I'm only your mirror. That's all the hell I was. And if you do this stuff like this for somebody like myself, I cannot actually imagine that I would be in a society which would be ruled by the people like yourself. I don't think I would feel safe, honestly. I would definitely disband you, entire monarchy, because you're of no fucking use. And even as a veteran, whatever the fuck I would be, I would not feel safe about having you around. It is just as simple as this. That's why. Because you have no ethics. Because you're rotten. Rotten to the core. And you're a backstabber like this. You do this stuff like that. My case proves beyond any doubt that you are absolutely no good. You are absolutely no good. You're no fucking good. You heard that from me. And you already know who I am. As always, I'm gonna say to you, thanks for watching this video. It was just quite an interesting stuff. I don't know. I have no idea exactly where exactly did I come across this topic, but it just popped up in my head. I yet have to see how the hell did I started to think about this Soviet funerals and stuff like this, and yeah, he absolutely did die. Yes, sir. If you say so, that this is the way it was, then that must have been like that. And they did not write about absolutely anything. They did not wrote about absolutely anything. They did not wrote about absolutely anything about, you know, there is nothing written anything about Illuminatis. Is it written anything about Illuminatis? Do you know anything about Illuminatis? You people don't know anything about, nothing is documented about Illuminatis. People talk about Illuminatis, there's a lot of talk about Illuminatis, but there is nowhere anything documented about. There is nothing, there's no proof, there's no documented proof about it, and that actually goes to 100% prove my case. I wouldn't be like this if you wouldn't done this to yourself. The one who always was on your side was myself. Oh yeah, shit. I was going over this stuff here. I was studying this stuff here about the Japan white soldiers, and it ends with Zhukov.
Last minute.
Zhukov. It ends with the Zhukov, and I wanted to test to see when the Zhukov died before I would try my memories. Zhukov, or memories on the Zhukov were simply the memories that from the Western perspective, from the perspective of what went on in Yugoslavia, this was just a man who liked me. And for that matter, he had to go, he had to be removed, and it was referred to me as somebody who destroyed him. They put on my shoulders the blame for absolutely everything. I mean, whatever they could. I mean, I was more evil than Hirohito, a Japanese emperor. I was so fucking evil as a baby that Hirohito got to travel around a little bit. He got to see the world a little bit. Actually, places and locations he otherwise would not. Including the United States of America. This is not happening. It's what I heard. I was so fucking evil as a baby that Chinese left. I had to be. I just had to be, man. I was just, how can I say, it was just my destiny to be so fucking evil that the Chinese even would forgive Japanese their war crimes. That's how evil the fuck I was. So, that Japanese could invest into Chinese industry sector, invest financially, and of course, more than anything, technologically. That's how evil the fuck I was. And Chinese hated me, and at the same time, they loved me for it. I think I was the one who liberated China from the so-called Soviet Union, from the Russia, because, you know, it was not easy for Chinese exactly during the Soviet Union period. When China established itself on its own, China went, the economy simply took off. That's how evil the fuck I was. Yes, you understand what this was all about. You understand why and how all this stuff was about. I just don't understand how the people can be so fucking evil. I don't understand that. That's the part I don't understand, and I refuse to understand any of that stuff. I refuse to further finance parasites like this. I refuse to further finance society that support parasites like this. I actually refuse to support lies, because these people are only being used to, you know, to excuse the stuff they did. But it was the people who really benefit from William. Yeah, we're gonna do some lie detector test here. We're going to do some lie detector tests here. Yeah, the Royals would, talking about the kids here. The best example is definitely Andrew. He did travel to Russia, absolutely, when he was 14, that kind of stuff, with the Philip and that kind of stuff. But, and earlier than that, but 14, I stated with a reason. And he used Edward and Andrew. Edward and Andrew. Do I even have this correctly? I mean, does it make sense, this stuff here? That's a 65 he is. Yeah, I do. 12. 11. All right, 12, whatever. I should even know when they started to independently go to Russia, that kind of stuff. Exclusively did Andrew ended in Russia independently, even as a traveler. I would say, at least this is what he wanted me to memorize this. According to his own accounts, according to the talk we had inside of our house. But he was like the youngest ever that he would go to the Russia on his own, practically, in that sense. Like, I'm going to give you like a magic timeline. Would be maybe 17, maybe not even 18. Other royals, it would be just like the age that you see right there. They would go with 23, 22. That means, with that being said, there's nothing here to say. I mean, 23, 22, Anne is gonna explain to you with the Charlie this stuff. Charlie is awkward individual. He's just tricky, in my opinion, shitty all the way. Just a trickster, a liar, basically, that twists, lies around, and he's sick. In my opinion, this guy's sick. He always was. That's the thing. If I ever got information that was given to me on a plate, it was either from the Anne or it was from the Andrew. But Charles is just fucking sick, man. This guy was just twisting shit, making things interesting, but would not provide the answer, and was just, weird. Just with one word, weird. I mean, not just simply not straight. Not straight. Edward also was more helpful. Edward was actually very helpful, but Charles had under control everyone. So, more or less, this was the impression from the earliest childhood days. I was a baby. What exactly I was used or how they were also using me for. It was an espionage. It was a big espionage. There was no bigger espionage than the one during the Cold War, for obvious reasons you understand. There was no bigger case. No. Oh man, they were using me for all kinds of stuff, but including the drug dealers. All kinds of stuff, but this is just, they import themselves, even a British lady, some sexy British female, and they would have this sexy British females visit, and then they would station themselves one in Ljubljana. They had this British guy who was in Ljubljana, whatever, and he was the one who was always coming and meeting them and this and that. If somebody had an urge, either that be a diplomat or whatever, including, I should say, I think there was a man really for the royals. That lady was as beautiful as hell. And then they would use her, literally, those days when I was still a baby. And I was still growing up. I'm just reminding you over there in London the stuff, the way you were doing, because it was more, there are also local ladies, and then they become really, really wise about what you would refer to as a nightlife, that kind of stuff, and they had their own females they would have at disposal if they would have urges and stuff like that, just reminding you of a good old days, and that you're not going to think by any chance that this case can possibly go into see nothing, hear nothing, know nothing. You really are. You are just. This is just the stuff that you did it to yourself. You screw yourself up by assuming that something is wrong with me, that I don't recall the stuff. Here you're watching a dialogue I sent to a Japanese king, Naruhito. He knows about this stuff. This is a Nissan Altima. These lights, based on my drawings, that kind of stuff. At least that's what he stated. He wants the car to remind, that kind of stuff. You guys are just making these things difficult to yourself. Nobody really wanted to make it difficult for you. You're just doing it to yourself, and then, you know, things are getting ugly. Things are getting ugly. You got a wrong impression about me. You were in my home. And there is no Slovenia here. You were here in Yugoslavia, you were here in Slovenia, but in my home there was no Yugoslavia and there was no Slovenia here. You were in my home, and when you come in my home, for you to behave this way and then leave me with a legacy like the way I do, you know, you see on my blog, to which you refer to as you're going to have to do it by yourself, all by yourself and stuff like this. No, there's nothing really by myself. We cannot talk about by myself. We can only talk about you're not being really with me ever. Because you really cannot do stuff like this to a human being and say, hey, you know, we are part of you, you know, we are with you, and so on and so forth. This is disgusting. This is disgusting, and it's important for the world to get to know you. It's important for the world to know who you are. You're nothing so damn special. There's nothing so damn special about you. I'm gonna stop here. I don't want to go too far with this. The only question I would have for the royals, if you ask me if I have a question for the royals, the only question that I have for the royals, for the Illuminatis in general, the only question that I have for you is, how can you be so disgusting? There was a lot on hygiene, on me, and so on. But the question here is, how can you be so you? How can you be so disgusting? That's the only question. It's only one question. They were asking me, what would you ask us if you would, if you could, and so on. I only have one question for you today. And I'm almost age 53 now. How can you be so disgusting? And how could you have been so disgusting with me? I don't have any other question, because all my questions are answered. I answered them myself. There is nobody out there, none of you, that possibly could dispute any of it. The Andrew stated me, he's going to go to, I don't know, what's that, 10 million pounds worth mentioned that he has in, I think it's Abu Dhabi, right? But that's at least one thing I can say. He said to me, and you're never going to see me again. You're never going to get to me. Once I am in, obviously in Abu Dhabi, whatever he listed that he has this mention, that he's going to be exiled, whatever, that he's going to have to be exiled or whatever. That's what he, talking about the Prince Charles and William, threatened me with Harry, they intimidated. Giving a full support to Prince Andrew. And you're never going to get to me. Ha 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 ha. I will not witness for you. Ha 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 ha. And so on. Well, that's good for you, Prince Andrew. The Spanish king Juan Carlos is already waiting for you. You see, he already did that. He also was involved in MK Ultra, as you know. You know him, I'm sure you know him. So it's going to be the two of you already. You're not going to be by yourself. Yes, you may want to ask your new Abu Dhabian about his fuck up, honestly, again pertaining to my case about how he will not witness, and he made him so clear about that stuff also with the Juan Carlos. See, Abu Dhabian, Mr. Andrew Mountbatten, Abu Dhabian. He was asking Margie, would you like to have some? Oh, how wonderful, it's so wonderful. And they were all the entire family arrived with the two daughters. The year, probably I would say about 2015, I would say, when we had this stuff going on. When we were again reminded about Abu Dhabian, but it was sometimes in 2010 that this was already on the picture, the villa and stuff in Abu Dhabian. They traveled to the Abu Dhabi all the time. But the thing is, the two daughters were not thrilled with the Abu Dhabian style. They were asking, well, what's the matter? What's the matter? This goes to 2010. I told them, no, I am okay, no. Yeah, but you know, luxus. No, I said, no, it's all right. It's okay. So I was not into becoming an Abu Dhabian, but there you go. You might just get a new resident, the Abu Dhabi. Prince Andrew the Buttenberg, Mountbatten, no? Was laughing in my face, together with the Juan Carlos, actually, that the two, both of them, that once they get into the Abu Dhabi, there'll be no witnessing for you. Ha 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 ha. Maybe he wants to, maybe you want to ask him about a few questions prior to departure. It's okay. It's alright if he goes and he becomes the Abu Dhabi, and that's alright. But yeah, this was the interaction. That's why I said a little lie detector test. Yeah, you can test Prince Charles and Anne and Edward and Andrew on issues which I stated in this video. Andrew was later correcting this stuff. He said nobody goes out until they are 18 years of age and that kind of stuff. No. He said to me, forget about that stuff and so on. It appeared as he was not telling me the truth, so you can ask him about exactly what I stated here. Every one of them is to confirm what I stated to you about the espionage, about show me the pictures, about Russian politicians, prominent figures. They are to answer with yes. You know, that kind of stuff. You want to do me a favor. That's the kind of stuff that it should be of interest to the general public overall. Otherwise, I don't even understand you in Britain, in the US and so on. What the fuck you're talking about Constitution and the Bill of Rights. Lately we haven't heard anything from the Bill of Rights. The Bill of Rights is all gone. The Bill of Rights is, let me see the age of the Bill of Rights. There you go. That's your Bill of Rights right there. There you go. You see the Bill of Rights here. Oh, he was very, very involved in... Oh, come on, eh. He's gonna do this, hoop. He is 76. He's still around. It looks like a Bill of Rights is still gonna be around. And Constitution, I haven't found for the Constitution yet, but that's what he looks like. How do you guys feel about your Bill of Rights and about your Constitution and about all your civil rights and about your hoopa racism, reverse discrimination, and I don't know, affirmative action and all that kind of stuff based on my witnessing about this stuff. How do you guys feel about your countries, about your Western democracy? How is it that worlds see you today? Do you think they see you today as they saw you before you started this stuff? Because today it's on a broader scale. Today everybody's internet, whoever has the internet, they get to see. They get to see these videos and make their mind on their own without your even interference assistance. Imagine how many people you don't get to assist on how to see, how to pursue the world. I know the YouTube indicates only 1 view per video, but that's fine with me. Just as I already thought that I finished this video, there is a possibility that the Russians did something stupid. There is a possibility they did something stupid. I did describe the last picture scene in the video as the final, like that was like a final resting place. I understand that he passed away inside of the hospital. His wife refuted my claims as unreal, as not factuous, as untrue, etc., etc. Already the fucking shit, Russian fucking shit pertaining to portraying me, how he passed away on the bed with the last picture taken of him in 1974. And I'm gonna say to you that Zhukov in 1974 supposedly suffered immense problems, because I remember his wife, him, his kids going from his home to the hospital. It was all about the home hospital. And how stupid the hell do you have to be to portray somebody, a baby, a child, that the guy is faking his death? I mean, there's something has got to be wrong with you. So now, if by any chance he did die, and you were using somebody else to replicate him, to substitute his existence, this was supposedly a terrible, terrible tragedy. That's how they, I yet have to see which politicians were back then, announced that like a terrible, terrible, terrible thing. And the violence against me fucking exploded upon his death. Now explain to me, why is it that violence against me so violently exploded upon the Zhukov's death? Gotta calm myself down a little bit, man. I'm loud and I'm a little bit passionate about this stuff, and so Brezhnev. Oh, the Brezhnev was especially, but it wasn't about the Brezhnev only. It was the whole pack of these people. It was a whole pack about these people. It wasn't only about Brezhnev. Brezhnev was like a nice guy who just had to start to act in a very, very ugly way against me because of his partisan bodies. It was always the partisans. It was always the one who was fucking Brezhnev in the ass were always his politcommissars, his comrades from the Soviet Red Army. They were always the one that was the worst. That's what they portrayed to me, because they were building some kind of idea, figure in my head about this internal red enemy that was just omnious and was everywhere and was executing people and persecuting people and torture people and I don't know what, like, man, like, I don't know, like I was a son from Hitler or something like this. Like I came to, I don't, you know, to overthrow a Soviet Union as a baby, whatever. The hell. What the hell did I have to do with that? Nothing is the answer. But that's how they portray these things. I remember the death of the, because they claim me, but you don't remember anything, and you don't remember anything, and you don't remember anything. They told me this afterwards. Because the name Zhukov was heavily disputed. In my personal opinion, Zhukov did not pass away. He supposedly passed away in immense pain and suffering and so on. This is the way it was. I think Zhukov have also daughters. It was something about the daughters. There you go. Maria Zhukova, Era Zhukova, Ella Zhukova, Margarita Zhukova. Fuck, I was right. Look, all of them were involved in grandkids in this case. Why the fuck would you make such a noise? And why were you coming up with the different scenarios that you tried to fool me on his death? If he died and this and that. Why? The one who did this shit were Russians. They were not British or Americans. Why were you so not straight about these things? Why were you doing issues and trouble to yourself? In my opinion, no, Georgi did not pass away. If he somehow did pass away, then it must have been somebody else they have used to substitute him with. It would be extremely difficult to substitute Khrushchev, I will tell you that. That would be impossible to substitute. And I guarantee you Khrushchev did not pass away in 1974. So, if you have some man who passed away, and you have some others who did not pass away, then think about how fuckly country you are as a Soviet Union, and today as a Russia. Because Soviet Union was nothing other than a mirror of the Russia. That's all there was. I want to be politically correct. Not politically correct, but correct about it. You're dealing with me. It's not so easy to lie. It's not so easy to misinterpret. And it's not so damn easy to portray somebody as insane. Even after you label one as insane, even after you pop on his forehead and make him completely insane through MK Ultra procedure. Violence, not procedure, but such a violence is impossible to describe that I endured. It's not so easy to do this. It's not so easy to just discredit a person. The way you think, it can be just done like that. And now, these days, you're learning it the hard way. About the Russia, I will not even talk about the Russia. Russia is Russia. Russia always was Russia. It's not even worth to talk about. The most important part is that the Russia doesn't swallow the rest of the world with its crazy, sickening ways, the way they're doing this stuff. It's just sickening. Zhukov died of a heart attack after suffering a stroke on June 18, 1974 in Moscow, etc., etc., etc. Zhukov did not die of the heart attack. I know so, and I can say this because I remember how he supposedly died. Yeah, I was 26 months old. You don't die like this. I remember them arranging this stuff. I remember them faking this stuff, making it loud, unreal. I remember them going through this process, obviously in Moscow. So he did not die. I am going to say to you that Zhukov did not die. Now, when I mention to you, this is how it works, the memory. Now, when I mention to you the pain, and this and that, the daughters lied about it. It was one daughter I'm going to tell you exactly how it was. It was one daughter, whichever daughter that was, that came up with this idea for the father to go. And this is exactly because of the issues that I stated. Zhukov was simply not a material that would be exactly what Soviet Union wanted, actually the Russia wanted to portray to the world. He was the wrong signal. He had to go. I pop up in the picture and they might have to do something with it. And so they didn't want this kind of image to be projected. It's also stuff I was told that they will be doing this stuff because they don't want this kind of image about foreigners to get an idea also. It wasn't about the foreigners, it was about the domestic Russian people who started to see themselves in me. Therefore, through me in the Zhukov, through me in the people whom the system executed, through me in people whom they tortured, hospitalized, imprisoned, and then on the other hand, Zhukov in me. This is what the Soviet Union did not want to see, so he had to go. It was all based on one daughter that insisted that that must be done like this, and then the rest of it just followed from one issue to another, and Zhukov was gone off the picture. If you wonder about how it happened, this is exactly how it happened. Is just enough that I remember him faking pain. He faked, and then when they wanted to portray this as an incident, as a death, they became violent with me. I would refer to that as a violence. They would not even consider me, and it would be, you know, like I would be watching my mom and my father, basically. The same thing, the same shit, identical stuff. Totally identical. In a sense of, Savo, this is my name, this is my father's name, based on prior agreements, you know. It's like, we said we're going to do that. And the father would just go and da 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 da. Identical. Except that my father is in a real danger, in a great danger. Because you don't want to do your job. You, not I. Did not die. My verdict about my final verdict about Zhukov did not die. You might have even, based on internet service provider, you can see the timing when you have the time over there in the corner. On the right corner you have the time. I did not browse this, I did not look this, I didn't pay attention to it. I just decided I'm going to do a video on fake death certificates, Russian fake death certificates. Basically baby espionage, that type of stuff. To expose what we have going on today in Britain, in the US, and so on. And what we have had all along, basically the conscience, the level of the conscience of the people, how it works. If you pay attention to this, my logic, my thinking as a psychologist, as somebody who analyzes the events of this video, you're going to see that this is coming from the memory. This is not coming from my research. You compare this to the ISP, Internet Service Provider address, you're going to see that this is coming from the memory. This is not coming from anywhere else, for that matter. Not that I would read about it and then go about and talk about. No, sir. This is originale. Technologia. The one more thing I'm going to say to you about the technologia is, and what I discussed about with myself earlier before I started to video record this stuff, to talk to myself helps bring issues up, and that helps to recall the stuff, basically giving myself an interview gives me the idea, the ability to see the time into a Soviet Union. What this video is unique because it doesn't pertain to Boris Yeltsin. Boris Yeltsin was yet another example of death for which I believe it was not death. This was yet another one like this that I also doubt about authenticity of his death. This is yet another one. He would bring me to home of his wife, of his where he was from, etc., etc. These people, every Russian president, entire families were involved in it, up to throat and a bow, with the kids, with the grandkids, etc., etc., etc. What makes this interesting is that this goes to the baby years when I was a baby. They explain to you the nature of this business. Now, they could do a lot of stuff to cover up the traces of, the stuff that went on in the past, so that this case could be disputed. It could be, disputed, not proven, etc., etc. But no, I analyzed quite good this stuff, and I'm completely aware about what the Russian state was doing. It was not only about the Russian state, also others were doing. The important issue maybe that I missed about these politicians, we have this Brezhnev here and this Brezhnev and Brezhnev, because Brezhnev was still, the Brezhnevs was still on the picture. With Russian politicians, the way it was done with the Russian politicians, the way this stuff was done with the Russian politicians was done in such a way that there would be one Brezhnev, there would be two Brezhnevs. There always would be two Brezhnevs. Always. It would be two Yeltsins, it would be two Brezhnevs, it would be two Vladimir Putins, it would be, every one of these Russian presidents, apparatchiks, there were always two of them. For two, I definitely know. I know that Putin also had copies of Putin involved in it. I am aware of that. But for Brezhnev, Putin worked on this case as much as he possibly could to dispute the whole thing. Putin absolutely did not want this to come out, ever, under no circumstances. So he goofed around and fucked around, and, well, in the end he made himself even more stupid. There were always two Brezhnevs, if I refer to the Russian presidents, the Russian figures. Always. Always, once and for all, always. There were always two of them. What exactly I mean by this is that there was one, always. The one that interacted with me in front of the camera people. Always. So at this point, at this stage in time, we are doing pretty much identically to this. Also, you can see what is the difference between United States of America, between Great Britain, between Russia, therefore between the West and the Russia. It's just that the Russians made me understand this. That's what makes it different. Josip Broz Tito, the Yugoslav president Josip Broz Tito, also made me understand that. Milosevic also made me understand that. These Eastern European dictators always made me understand that. Even that they would not want to make me understand this, they did. Because it became to me evident. Because there was so much interaction. And because they were not really, I don't know how efficient in doing stuff. The difference was huge. For the Soviet Union, for the Yugoslavia, everybody knew that what is done on the camera is not done off the camera. everybody in the society knew that the children, everybody knew that in front of the teacher you have to act this way, and past the teacher's present you could act in a completely different way. One was like that official personality, another one was not official personality. In the Soviet Union and in Yugoslavia, all the presidents, heads of the state, they were one thing with me. All the camera people got to see me. One thing with me in front of the camera people, and they acted in a completely different way when they are off the camera people. When they were off the camera, they turned into animals. It was not anymore diplomatic, it was not about the smart, it was not about the witty, and of course, it was not about nice. They even tried to be nice, which it had it just contradicted their real personality so much that it made them feel that they are faking it too much, that it wasn't even real for them. They couldn't even see themselves for the shit they were doing off the camera, and comparing themselves to what would be expected of the camera people to deal with. They couldn't even do it. It was just, for them alone, what the difference was just too much friction. They didn't even feel natural. This case had their conduct, their criminal conduct had an impact on their well-being, and they were naturally searching for a cameraman that would be KGB, that would be like hardcore KGB, you know, so they wouldn't even have to hide as much. They would also do some nasty stuff in front of the camera people. But the attitude was enormous. The Soviet Union, Yugoslavia, one thing in front of the camera people and something completely different in front of me, all by ourselves, in a negative sense. If I had a chance to hope for something positive, it would be in front of the camera people. However, with the course of time, they would not even hide the hostility toward me in front of the camera people. That's what's interesting. That's what's really fascinating. That's what I would expect. With Americans, with the British, and with others, however, it was more libre, free. The camera people were free to roam, free to see nasty shit they would do to me. This is what is fascinating to me. Americans and British were not even hiding nastiness, basically. That's what's interesting to me. That means that Western press media was more corrupt, more criminal than the Eastern. This is fascinating to me in a sense of conduct in front of me. They were more direct about in front of their camera people than the Soviets were. And when I go back in the day, they were not. When I think about the Nixon was hiding. Nixon was hiding the stuff with Ronald Reagan. They were not comfortable about being nasty with me in front of the camera people. But then, you know, at one point in time, I'm never going to forget Nixon. I'm never going to forget he created together with Ronald Reagan, the whole thing looked like he knew exactly. They read my mind about how I feel about this stuff. Because, you know, everybody would, under this kind of circumstances, absolutely everybody would count on witnesses. And so I did too, even as a child. Doesn't matter. They made themselves really blatantly clear about that. I ain't got nowhere to run, nowhere to hide, by using journalists actually to poke fun at me as far as witnessing what was right there in front of them. I guess that over the course of time, the diplomatic relations between the Soviet Union and between the United States of America, Britain I should say, increased so much that the corruption became so overwhelming. It might have been like this always, who knows. But it's difficult to do this when it comes to always, if the person doesn't have, is not labeled as a bad person, as ultimate evil. You can do this stuff once you have somebody that provenly is a criminal and that kind of stuff. But with a baby, that's difficult. That's why I said maybe that always might be the case. I don't know. That it actually would not even make any kind of difference. The two would start to learn evil from one another. To the Russians, it became evident that Russians were definitely the promoter of the violence in front of the camera, in front of their own journalists. But at one point in time, this stuff just took off when it comes to the Russia. Blatantly, they acted in a nasty way. And Americans, seems like they just matched that level of criminality. It wasn't about challenging one another or anything like this, but it was all about the coordinating crime mutually with one another. This was based on the mutual respect, relations, therefore trust. That's how they build the trust. They build the trust based on crime. So that's the issue I wanted also to discuss about Soviet on camera and off camera. When I was a child, they were more diplomatic about it. They watched their backs in respect to, and they also had some seizures in respect to presence of the journalists, but it always turned out to be, a play. Like they would use certain people, that they would even suggest, that we're going to do this and for you and this and that and so on. Like you would feel like you would go into the room with the people that were actually secretly on your side and stuff like this, and the whole thing would always come out as a bloody fucking joke, as a total joke, basically. Clearly, with photographers, with documenters that were hardcore KGB people, CIA people practically. I don't even know if this does make sense to you or it doesn't make sense to you, but to me it does, because the climax of this stuff probably reached process of Vladimir Zelensky and Donald Trump no, I'm not going to get Charles into this stuff. Charles was just doing his shit on the side, but the climax of this stuff was reached between Vladimir Zelensky and Donald Trump. Their meetings at the White House, which became evident that overwhelmingly the journalists knew me. You're talking about White House journalists that interacted with me during, actually say prior to this, rehearsals of the rehearsals, prior to this unofficial meetings with Zelensky. This shit was so abundant that you could have Zelensky killed 10 years ago And they would have so many videos of unofficial meetings with the different people, royalties, British and American and so on, that he could have possibly not even exist anymore because of these rehearsals they were doing. And you could still play the videos about him, how he's meeting people that you see today. This is how fucked up this stuff is now. For real. This is the world of the journalism today. This is the truth. These are the facts about the world you live, I subsist in. This is the way it was. The state figures will either confirm this or they lie to you about absolutely everything. Upon a close investigation, and I already published this video, I came to the conclusion that in as following. It is written, I read right now somewhere, that Georgy Zhukov is born about 80 kilometers away from Moscow. I don't know, Strelyuka, whatever is the name. I did watch the video about this guy about a year and a half ago. This was a long documentary, about maybe 1 hour or so long documentary. However, in the process of making this movie here, that documentary did not make anything. It did not make any difference. Rather, it interfered with my memories, because my memories are different from whatever was depicted on that documentary. These are original memories that are stored in my head in respect to this city here. Let me just see something, if I can find. Yeah, there must be this here, March of the Soviet Union. Oh, so there must be. About a year ago, I watched the documentary about him. And I have to make sure that nothing in this documentary interferes with my memories from earliest childhood. And as I anticipated, the original death of Zhukov, which in my opinion took place either in a 4th grade of the grammar school, likely not 6th grade, actually 8th grade, but between 4th and 6th grade. 4th grade of the grammar school is where I believe that Zhukov passed away, died. Maybe even 6th grade. Between 4th and 5th grade, the witnesses to what I stated here are the Slovenian politicians such as Borut Pahor, Milan Kučan, and this old company, and Golubic, and so on and so forth. They traveled to the Soviet Union. They had, and other witnesses that include directly tied to this incident are the witnesses from London, from Greater than Great Britain, including now King Charles, and Andrew, etc., etc., etc. So, let me just make sure for me to see this stuff here. So, at the beginning,
the man known to history as Georgy Zhukov was born on the 1st of December 1896 in the village of Strelkovka in Kaluga province, around 80 miles to the southwest of Moscow.
So it's 80 miles. It's 80 miles southwest to the Moscow, Kaluga.
Was then the Russian Empire. His father, Konstantin, was a widowed cobbler who married his second wife, Ustinya, at the age of 41 in 1892. The 26-year-old Ustinya was a peasant laborer who was a widow herself when she married Konstantin. The couple's first child, a daughter named Maria, was born in 1894, followed by Georgy 2 years later. A younger brother, Alexei, was born in 1902, but died within a year. At the time of Georgy's birth, the vast Russian Empire stretched from Poland to Vladivostok on the Pacific coast, and from the shores of the Arctic Ocean to the mountains of Central Asia, with a total population
This is precisely the documentary I downloaded.
of some 140 million people. Georgy's native Kaluga province was in Russia's industrial heartland, and the nearby town was named Ugodsky Zavod, after the ironworks on the banks of the river Ugodka. Since 1996, the centenary of Georgy Zhukov's birth, the town has been known as Zhukov, after its most famous son. Russia was undergoing rapid industrial development at the turn of the 20th century, which was accompanied by an expansion of primary education. Unlike most peasant children, who were only at school for 2 years, Georgy received 3 years of primary education, which he started in 1903 at the age of 7. After completing his studies in the summer of 1908, Georgy was sent to Moscow as an apprentice to his maternal uncle Mikhail, who worked as a furrier in the center of the city not far from Red Square. While working 12 hours each day, Georgy continued his education at night school. Georgy was a keen reader and in his spare time studied the Russian language, mathematics, geography, and the sciences, along with his cousin Alexander, Mikhail's son. After Alexander was sent to Germany to learn German, he taught Georgy the language during his trips home to Moscow. By the summer of 1914, the 17-year-old Georgy Zhukov had completed his apprenticeship as a furrier.
You're not going to hear about his hometown Kaluga here anymore, not about his family, nor were you able to see shit. Not his house, not shit, nor nothing. That's it. That's about the end of it. You don't get any information, the information I am talking about. But this is all the information stored inside of the heads of the British royals. I highly recommend you, for the real documentary of Zhukov, to also watch this program here. Georgy Zhukov is a Marshal of Victory. Georgy Zhukov was also referred to as a butcher. He is accused of burying hundreds and thousands of Red Army officers, loot, robberies, all kinds of stuff. So I do recommend you to watch also this program to get a better idea about all that stuff, because most definitely this was a Russian man that Russian propaganda demanded nothing less than, and politically correct, fought literally at Berlin, where about 350,000 Red Army officers were sacrificed to conquer the city, just so Russians could get there before Allies. Highly recommend you also this documentary. I am not having any kind of opinion because I don't know much about it. I guess it was really important to the Soviet Union to get there before the Allies. There might have been a reason for that. I cannot even oppose that. I'm too little to judge a man like this. He had a hard life, extremely ambitious life. He's an extremely ambitious person, already based on the health problems that he managed to survive, conquer, and advance his career. I am way too little to judge anybody. However, I do have my own opinion about dealing with these people. First of all, the picture here that you see, which is the last picture that you see here, this is the last picture of him taken based on police interrogation. Now, you got to understand one thing, that Robert Golub, Milan Kuchan, Putin, Russians interrogated absolutely everything that I managed to store about people involved in MK Ultra. They interrogated, they demented make it crazy. So even if there was something they wanted to look different, twisted the stories, and this was probably one of the most twisted accounts that I record in the history of MK Ultra that pertain to Georgy I am right now completely somewhere else. The more important the person was, the more they twisted. I should say not important, but sensitive. Sensitive is the correct issue. The more it was sensitive to established group, to established elite that wanted you dead, that was, in case of Georgi, even a competition with me. There is this whole crap about this issue with the Georgi, which British royals blow up out of proportions, like they did most of the stuff to drive Russian side insane. The more they complicated the thing, the more insane things would come out. Based on the picture that you see right there, with his sword on that bed, police came to the conclusion that my witnessing about how what you have seen right there, like the last picture that was taken, inside of his home, was wrong. The picture that you see right there, they claim me pertains to the hospital. And they took me to this hospital, and it was all kinds of stuff like this that went on. Now, I have the reason to feel that way, because similar situation to this one, quite identical to the one that you see right there, also was enforced during MK Ultra through what the police claimed me was a local hotel in Moscow. That hotel where they brought me, however, did not match my memory. However, the hotel, not the hotel, but my picture in my brain that is printed out, had in it a room with also what appeared to me to be brighter than that, with a window. However, that could have been a hospital. So the police might be in a way correct, and in a way not correct about what exactly I saw when it comes to Georgy Zhukov. I'm just giving you the original account. This original account was heavily stained with with memories pertaining to this is a long story. Other members of the Zhukov family, based on my memory about the Zhukov house 80 kilometers away from Moscow, which you're not going to find anywhere. The house itself, again, is a big problem, because from what I recall, there are two houses, and one house belongs to the sister. Actually, now already late sister. So there were relatives in those houses, based on my memory, or whoever that was. And based on my original account, the Zhukov house, original house, where he was born, probably I would assume, and that's very difficult again to tell. Why? Because the daughters had their houses in Moscow. That's another problem. It appeared to me that Zhukov lived with one daughter in Moscow, and he had another daughter in Moscow. And two daughters, it appeared to me, that he had in Moscow. But the thing is that he spent also time at his hometown, wherever he was. And so we have a serious problem here. I have serious problems with this stuff. I have many different memories, including what police enforced to either refresh my memory or to stain my memory. The problems are big. The problems are such that I was heavily tortured, I believe, in a housing of Georgy Zhukov. I believe that I was taken to preliminary, that I visit this housing with British royals, with Prince Charles, extremely familiarized with the housing, and they would go visit this town, see this town for themselves. They scouted around. Illuminatis love nothing more than to travel. They spent some time with me there. When they spent time with me there, this was a very poetic, very beautiful place, tranquil. But the devil had its finger in it, and before you even know, this turned into a nasty stuff. And it turned into a nasty stuff sometimes when I was in probably I would even say second grade of the grammar school, something like that I would say, and that means that that might have been 1979, it turned into bloody torture. Not pleasant at all stuff. Based on my memories, the house of Zhukov, of Georgy Zhukov, was rather dark inside, with not as many windows at all. That's why when you see that picture right there with him holding a sword, it does kind of fit the memory of his house, whatever they had him. That house was less with the less light in it. That's at least the impression I got, or whatever they have done with me. Charles knows absolutely everything about this stuff. As to the house for which I was suggesting early in the movie on, you know, how the man stood up from the bed. I was talking to you about that stuff, that they were doing the stuff like this and then he walked out and so on. That they were like rehearsing the stuff. I don't have a count. I don't have the ability to tell you about whether it was like this or was it like that or what exactly it was. However, I'm still certain that Zhukov did not die in 1974. And the reasons also for this I have, which is kind of a strange, because the British royals went on to pronounce one as deceased, dead. However, this stuff rather was really, really strange. They did this in such a way so that they would make me feel that they were interested in following up to learn more about where Zhukov is from, literally through Slovenian side that I mentioned. That's through the Josip Broz Tito, that kind of stuff. You know, which would, I don't know, somehow land them over there, which doesn't make any sense to me. I mean, so that years went past, and that would be, we would this is where it gets complicated. A return to Kaluga. So that tells me that something right here, where I say that something is not okay, because why the fuck would you want to learn about something if you're returning to someplace? Does this make sense to you? This is very, very contradictory. I assume, based on what I stated, and assume is very bad word in this case, because this is about dealing with the memories, that simply, more likely than his death, was simply a continuation of meeting with Zhukov at whatever location Zhukov was moved to. Which is just so many memories. And Charles knew about where Zhukov was from, and knew about where Zhukov was from before he passed away. Well, he was extremely important to them. Zhukov was extremely, extremely important to them. Extremely, extremely important to them. And wherever the Zhukov lived in Moscow, it would be one of the sisters that would come and have him transferred to the, of all the sisters, I'm crazy. Daughters. Of all the daughters, I don't know what I stated earlier, a sister or a daughter. We're talking about the daughters here. One of the daughters came to pick him up, and of all the sisters, of all the daughters, damn it, they sisters to one another, you know, but those are his daughters. It was one that took total charge of it. And that one was vital, more important, well established, I should say, and she ran this operation with his father. Obviously, death, funeral, that kind of stuff. She was an extremely feisty lady. His wife totally doubted anything I had to say, absolutely anything about my meeting him, knowing anything about him, that kind of stuff. She was gone of the picture, I guess, in The man was involved. This man was involved, this guy. Surprising, he's a British guy, but Walshall, I don't know what that is. Maybe he is some kind of a Welsh guy, British guy. But he looks so Eastern European, anyhow. Okay. Interesting guy. This guy. He spent time throughout the Eastern Europe. We're talking about right now wife of the Georgy Zhukov. There's Georgy Zhukov here. Galina Semyonova. This is 1940s. 1973, 47. That's interesting, this stuff here. You know? And so this is where it gets even more complicated. Because usually when one spouse dies, the other one is going to follow like almost 100% in Illuminati circle. I told you about that stuff. Why? Because they want to disappear of the public and they don't want to go as a single, but what they do is one goes off and then another one goes off. And that kind of a matches also the statistics. You can argue with that, you can tell, but this was often case during MK Ultra that couples would simply disappear almost together at the same time. Few months of a difference. This is like classic stuff. So this here, 1973, this tells me only one thing, you know, that he did not die in 1974. That's like a classic. But of course, that's not a proof. Then we have this one here, died in 67. That's what they say. And we have this one here. Alright, this is 67. Galina Alexandra. Is this the same person we're talking about? What the hell is this? It looks like that we are talking about the same person. So, it might not be his wife. Let me just see this here. As you see, this is very, very Stalinistic. She's not very happy about. She's not very happy about. No, this could. This one here. This is altered. This is 7 years ago. Was involved in it, absolutely was involved in it. He loved Stalin, that's very nice. This lady here, 97, that is of age 97, this is what likely was, and this is what I likely mistaken as likely mistaken as a wife. Hey, the lady is 97 today. Okay. Highly disputed my knowledge of ever meeting Zhukov. And then there is a whole list of other problems. This one here. This one here is the one that most likely took care of his father. transport to hospital, and you know, all that other stuff. This was the head, the main one, was this one here. Oh, but this is where things get complicated. It appeared to me that he did not die, and it appeared to me that in the first grade of the grammar school, we were visiting whatever village, whatever that was, to still meet what was Georgy Zhukov. This is where we have problems. Then these problems became even more intensified because the daughters from the Moscow, who were also visiting, most likely his native Kaluga place. I'm not even saying that he was in the same house or whatever it was, or whatever, or how this stuff was. They claim me also, there's another important issue with this. They claim me there is none left of the Zhukov family in this village. They claim me they sold everything, that actually there's only one person that was left in entire original village of the Zhukov. There was nobody of their entire Zhukov family. They left that place. There was nobody left there. But I cannot agree with that stuff. I cannot agree with that stuff. That's what they brainwashed me with during MK Ultra, if this helps in any way. This is the stuff you're definitely not going to find anywhere, and this is the stuff why I like this stuff. I wouldn't be doing any of this stuff if, you know, if you will find this stuff elsewhere. They were coming to visit him from the Moscow, and then at one point in time, I have no idea what it was. They also arranged, and that was before the first grade of the grammar school. So, to my knowledge, the stuff that you see right here, repeated. It appeared to me clearly that Georgy Zhukov did not die in 1974. They again delivered me to the hospital. What I'm trying to say is the ritual with a sword, with this kind of stuff, and I'm not saying that this with a sword, but it was also with a sword, and it was like this. However, I have to dispute this stuff. I have to dispute this stuff because the sword, this was supposed to be given to me, the sword. I was supposed to be given the sword by Georgy Zhukov. And instead of getting that sword, instead of giving that sword, Zhukov alone appeared to me was fucking around with a sword. He would not give me something that I could consider as, here, from me to you, something in that sense. As to what the British royals appears to me wanted to be the case. It was like, do you want? You don't want. Do you want? You don't want. Which is a classic. This is a classic MK Ultra, fucking around like this. You know, the delivery is going to be something important. It's going to be, I don't know what it's going to be. And then instead it's a humiliation. This humiliation did not stop even, I believe, after the Georgy Zhukov is dead. Georgy Zhukov possibly passed away in my first grade of the grammar school, which was in 1978. However, even that account is questionable. We roam around that village. We continue with the torture up to like second grade. And then the real torture started beginning the second grade. Beginning the second grade, it turned into more and more torture. Second, third, and fourth grade. And then it appeared as if it would stop And in between this stuff, it was like the sister stated, like the chick came from the Moscow, and it was like, and now it's like, now it's for real. You know what I mean? And now it's for real. Which goes to describe very, very in details that he spent life outside of the Moscow, likely at this Kaluga place, and whether the man passed away, whatever the case might have been, she came from Moscow to arrange whatever she already arranged in the Moscow. She came from Moscow to see it, and then she went back to Moscow to arrange everything necessary. And this is basically how it all ended. That's why I said that I even assume if it was not first, second, third, fourth grade of the grammar school, he must have died probably most likely in the fourth grade of the grammar school. Now, fourth grade of the grammar school, in my case, that would be 1982. So I assume 1982, 1981, 1980 would be, and I would rather go toward 1982 than 19... What the fuck am I talking about at all? 1982, 1981, then you have 1980, and of course 1979. Jesus Christ. I am really lagging behind. Basically, between first grade, which was 1987, up to 1982. 1987. Boy, am I fucking stupid. 1978 was the first grade of the grammar school, and all the way to 1982. That would be 4 years in between. I would give the time frame that Zhukov actually died, passed away. So, the original account about Zhukov, how he passed away in a Moscow, was heavily stained with a variety of deaths. Incidents which they portrayed his death in, they did not want me to remember shit. They really wanted to turn the whole thing into a schizophrenia. That's why I'm kind of proud the way I explain this stuff, because it's clear about the stuff that went on. If I would be talking to you stuff like this I would go to the mental ward. I mean, you know, I would taking this shit seriously. This is the way it was. No, I mean, we have to take in consideration the whole thing about what exactly went on. Torture continued again at my 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th grade of the grammar school at this place. This turned into total bestiality, but Georgi no longer was anyone in the picture. It appeared to me that this was a house from his sister, maybe her kids, whatever the case might have been. Then it was also about the sale of the house. That was at the later stage, whatever that was. These are the memories on Georgy Zhukov, the schizophrenia, which Slovenian police with Ljubljana, I should say Belgrade and Ljubljana, enforced in Russian Kaluga. Did I missed anything about this stuff here? Because it's the first when you see it, it can be a bit tricky. Yeah, it can be a bit tricky. So the stuff that you see here, they wanted me to say that I was right there, that this was it, and that he gave me the sword and this and that. In 1974 is his claim that he passed away. Not to my knowledge. Not to my knowledge. I might have touched his sword or something like that. whatever the case was. But really not to my knowledge. The way he passed away, the way that he died, was the way you see it here was rehearsed to me also on other opportunities, and it must have been exactly based on, and I don't think this is the way it was at all. You know, the death looks very, very different from that looks very, very different from what you see on the pictures. And what you see here on this picture was on another occasion again rehearsed to me as the way they did this stuff. You know, now call him, and this and that. Come, you have to come, and this and that. The way he appeared, whomever they have used, unless this guy was totally fucking insane, which I'm also not excluding. Like I said, you need to educate yourself a little bit more about this man, get a broader idea about it, and then you're going to make a decision whether this was your man or was not your man. It's just as simple as this. And on the other hand, I said, I cannot judge him, but the guy who was involved in MK Ultra, if by any chance this was a Georgy Zhukov, which I believe he was, because all the Illuminatis that were involved in MK Ultra, and this I have hundreds and thousands of people that were involved in MK Ultra. You know what they witnessed? Do you know what you guys witnessed? I'm going to remind you what you witnessed in this case. What you witnessed in this case is, after a most severe torture that was done on me. And this procedure, my friends, was done sometimes even past 6th grade of the grammar school. That's why I mentioned to you earlier there is a possibility he even died in 1986 or so. The way they portrayed his death to me was like he was totally invincible man, a hero, a master of the world, a king of the universe. He did not look like that. He was really a villain, from what I recall, to whom I was brought to give the holy sword of the Russia, to be entrusted into, because it didn't appeal to me. This guy didn't appeal to me, really. To his deathbed, and on that deathbed, rather like in a Don Quixote scenario, instead of my being given the holy sword of the Russia, I was rejected, laughed at, and stuff like this. So it's possible that he even passed away in 1986, 1987, which, it would be completely reasonable. Totally reasonable. Think about one thing. Think about this stuff. Have to be a little bit logical about this stuff. Would it have been unusual for him to pass away in such a late, actually really late. He was born in 1896, 4 years less than 1900. If you add this together, you get the number. What do you really get? Well, it's written right there, 77, but 4%. Okay, 77. And in 74, I was 2 years and a half old. So 6 plus 6 is 12. And if you add this number, 12, that would be my 8th grade of the grammar school. His age would be only 89. So his possibility that he actually died at 89, that's actually very, very, very high. So I do believe that this man was not dead in 1974, but instead that he continued to clown, unless they were using the actor. But this actor, I have to tell you, looked very, very much like that. Vladimir Putin was involved in it. This man died exactly in thanks to Vladimir Putin, I'm going to say to you, this man died exactly in 1985. 1985 would be my age 15, is when this man died away. It was the 7th grade of the grammar school, thanks to Putin, 6th grade, 7th grade of the grammar school, when this man supposedly died, passed away. And even that stuff is questionable. Putin was on the picture. He might have lived another few years, even that I'm going to say to you. I just want to clarify about his memories, about all this stuff, the way it was with the British Royals. The British Royals dared me about the memories on his house, about that kind of stuff. So I don't have anything else to say. Do you know Yeltsin, before he perished, really perished, not when he was pronounced as dead, he also wandered to some kind of village with his wife, and it was close to identical the stuff. They moved out of the Moscow to their native locations, dachas, whatever they have, villas, and that's where either from the spouses or their own villages, whatever the case might be, and then one day they just buried them exactly where they supposedly already were buried. This is the way that stuff is done way too often in Russia. I know that the stuff I'm talking about is de facto legitimate. 100%. 100%. It was not even the first grade. It was not even about, over the course of the time, the British Royals no longer had to espionage about who died and who did not die, because they all collaborated together with one another. And it's like I told you, in case of Zelensky, Zelensky could have died well over 10 years ago, and today still nothing would have been missing, not a single meeting with the foreign leaders, not with Trump, not with anything, still nothing would have been missing. If he died 8 years ago, today still you would have everything on the tape, almost as if it was original video recording. This is about Russian death certificates, how they do it in the Russia, in the Soviet Union, how it was, how it used to be. So I guess that with his crazy shit, that he earned his sword back to the Stalin, so that he was not listed, pronounced as a traitor or whatever to the Russia. Highly recommend you this video here. This man, the man you see right there, this Khrushchev, he had a very violent, very violent children left behind in Russia. Very violent children left behind in the Russia. And he was meeting Russian presidents, including Putin, politicians, Medvedev, that kind of stuff. They were paying visits to the USA. And posed in front of me as somebody who even got the military secrets from Americans, he would gladly surrender to the Russian side during their visits to the United States of America. I don't know about that. They had so many different channels that using this old man. However, he had to apologize. He stayed in the United States of America too, no? So, you know, I don't know. I really don't know. His son died of the stroke in Ukraine. He was pro-Ukrainian, all through not based on my opinion, which I established for myself during MK Ultra. To me, he acted like a Russian. It was not much Ukrainian over there, if anything at all. As you know, Russia successfully invaded Ukraine in 2014, and then again in 2022, the conflict, which is still still taking place. So the Khrushchev, just like many involved in MK Ultra, apparently committed a suicide in year 2020, when it became completely evident that I am absolutely untouchable when it comes to MK Ultra. This is where people started to crack. Now, I don't think he's dead. He, however, was listed as dead as if he committed a suicide. This is a son of the Sergei Khrushchev, son of the Nikita Khrushchev, one of the Nikita Khrushchev kids. So, it's like anything else that I missed here in this video? I don't think so. There is a man right there who was involved in MK Ultra, knows me very well. The British guy right there. Ask him about... No, actually throw him on a lie detector test, because all of you are just, acting like, really? Yeah, really. I did this very well, actually. I don't think that Putin is going to be happy about this picture anymore. I think I got my sword back too. That Russian legacy of Stalin, it didn't get through, really. I don't know how this is going to end in Ukraine, but it could well end also with the defeat of the Russia, complete, total annihilation of the Russia. Still everything is possible, still everything is on the table. All through it appears that things are working out very well for the Putin. As usual, tactics are applied with Ukrainian people not taking absolutely any initiative. It looks like there will be a lot of Ukrainian soldiers again hijacked, that's basically imprisoned, caught by the Russian troops, which already surrounded, I think it's a Pokrovka. And this is a step that who knows how many times have taken repeatedly after Putin simply selected the next city at his comfort before taking one over, pounded one with the bombs, burned one to the ground, cremated the city. There was no life left other than those that needed to be killed out. So everything is normal. Donald Trump is simply waiting for the two sides, that's basically Ukrainian and Russian, to decide to, for what is known, Trump refers to as a truce. As a truce. So that's basically what we are waiting for when it comes to Ukraine. Several cities are under siege, from Kramatorsk to Pokrovsk to Slavyansk to Sumy region. Entire Sumy region is becoming also smoked. And, well, it works for Putin, what can I say so far? But you never know, anything is possible, and based on my observation, lies likely are the most possible when it comes to Trump, when it comes to Donald Trump. He did receive the crown, he did receive several billions of dollars, a financial boost, just as was negotiated, and as Donald Trump demanded to be the case, for him completing a big task. But it doesn't look good for Ukraine. I have certainly not heard of the leader, certainly not Winston Churchill. Winston Churchill certainly was not the one who would receive the crown and billions of dollars before deciding to become British Prime Minister, nor did Winston Churchill, nor did Roosevelt before they took on the Hitler. But in the case of Donald Trump, things are working out very, very differently, as you see. Donald Trump, just as I stated, I did not state this. Donald Trump was the one who got my total support throughout MK Ultra. And just as I stated, if Zelensky was killed 8 years ago, all you would have to do is basically watch the TV or a computer, YouTube, and the only thing you would get is you would get the original recordings of Zelensky meeting and with Donald Trump and with Ursula von der Leyen and with all the politicians that you have seen so far discussing exactly the same topics to those that you have witnessed were displayed during, I should say, beginning of the Russian invasion of Ukraine in 2022. How about that stuff? How do you feel comfortable with this stuff? You know, it's real. It's real. It's real. I don't know how you feel comfortable about these things. Maybe you feel comfortable about it, but I don't feel comfortable about this stuff. I don't. So, it looked like an easy job. It looked like I'm going to be an easy job for this one. But in the end, through it all, that sword right there did no good to the man when I was in question. He failed miserably, just like many others did. That's rather an embarrassment, sort of embarrassment. He might have even earned one. He had a difficult life, but in respect to my question, this is disgrace. Oh yeah, no, Stalin would love that. To fuck them up. They did insulted me badly. These are just 3 guys. These guys were involved in MK Ultra for some time. These guys were, the 2 of them were alcoholics. The 3rd one was not as alcoholical. And then there also was somebody else. And I don't know who was that somebody else. But this did not appear even to be a Zhukov. Zhukov probably was finished sometimes by the 6th grade of the grammar school, I would say. More with a certainty 6th grade of the grammar school, I would say, than anything like 1984, I would say. 1984, and maybe even between the 4th grade and the 6th grade of the grammar school. Between 1982 and 1984, I would say the Zhukov was gone. I think they told me 1981 or something like that. I think they told me this. That much about the Zhukov. Those were not profile that would fit description of the Zhukov. Zhukov was already older. And another thing is, this is just a Slovenian, Russian, Slovensko-Ruski fuck around. No, Ljubljana, Moscow, fuck around. Sick, basically. It's interesting. That's interesting to do. I don't know what they found so interesting in it, but there's a lot of sick people out there. And alcohol was a big deal back in the day. I mean, they loved that stuff. That kind of stuff went excellent with the alcohol. Yeah, that's what I have to say. This is just what I think about. This is just a dishonoring, basically, Zhukov. When I think about Putin was involved in this directly with Medvedev, with a new future executives of the Russia, when I think about this, such a high profile and so low that it ended on this kind of level, this kind of anything goes in Russia, basically. Anything goes in Russia. Anything goes. This is the final chapter. This is a day after. I could have video recorded this earlier already. I did not. Here is what I have to say to you all about everything that you witnessed so far in respect to my memories pertaining to Georgy Zhukov and others. I'm going to put this here. I'm going to title this as a final chapter. Early Moscow with the British Royals. We're going to name this here. That's how we're going to do that. Going to make a little like this. Okay, this is not bad. So get ready for the final take the next day, basically, is what I have to say to you in respect to all this stuff. There is, of course, more. I could go for every presidential family member and break down issues on them. But I'm going to start with a Georgy Zhukov. I'm going to make few interesting facts, and then I'm out of here. So everything that I told you in the video, I'm going to summarize in a following. He passed away on June 18, 1974. Let's see how old I was when Georgy Zhukov passed away. I screw it up here. This is my birth. To me it's important because you know what I'm about to do right now. I'm about to demonstrate to you what other people could possibly not even dream about it. That's why this is important. So you also get to see whom they hospitalized. This goes to show, to demonstrate basically the world that we live in. I think it's scary as hell. This shit should scare every normal person. So we're talking about 2 years and 6 months. So I was 2 years and 6 months old, ladies and gentlemen. 2 years and 6 months. That makes it 30 months basically and 9 days. I like this number, 9 days. So you want to know how it was on a day when Zhukov was rushed to the hospital? On a day when Zhukov, Georgy Zhukov, this man here, was rushed into the hospital in year 1974 on a June 18, when I had just 30 months. It was end of the visit in Moscow. It was end of the visit in Moscow for us. Back then, this was a Yugoslavia. This is 2,200 kilometers if you would go walking distance. And the distance, we should measure it between London and Moscow instead. That is actually even more, 2,850 kilometers. If you head from the London, see, almost the same distance as if you go from here. And the day in Moscow was very sunny, sunshine weather. Here I'm gonna pop my picture a little bit so that you get to see that this is it, the real deal. The day when Georgy Zhukov supposedly died. That's what we are talking about here. The day was sunny, bright. Prince Philip, Queen Elizabeth, Princess Anne, Prince Andrew, Prince Charles, I think all of them, including Edward, everybody. It was the last day with the Queen Elizabeth, with the Prince Philip in Moscow on that sunny June 18 of 1974, when I only had 30 months old to get there. It was the last day, stay in the Moscow. The last day. We were at the airport and the news came out about the Zhukov dying. We were rushing to the cars, and what this is, I'm not so sure. We might have not been already at the airport. This is what I have the problem. I don't know why, but we were rushed to his place where we already visited before, and obviously to the hospital where Georgy Zhukov was. It was the last day in Moscow, you understand? British royals would, together, they would take me to Moscow already before on many trips, wherever they would go. And the way this worked in Russia, in Moscow, with the Queen Elizabeth, with the Prince Philip, with Anne, with the Charles, the way this worked was that we would have a schedule of stops, and they would stop at people whom they deemed were important people. Therefore, this kind of business I was talking about, they obviously already had this going on before. But with me, this shit exploded because I was so pro-British, pro-American, pro-Spanish, pro-Italian, pro-French, pro-German. This entire shit that went on went into the fifth gear. Totally. The wheels simply fell off. It was like another person stepped from another planet in the reality. It like expedited, boosted, accelerated this whole thing into speed of light. It was the last day. On that day, I remember then we were in the airport. I actually thought that we already were at the airport. I think that we were at the airport, and I think that we rushed from the airport to the Zhukov. But it's also possible, because they were making other stops that day, that the news came. Andrew, I know, was there, and we were rushed to the hospital. So I dare you, British royals who witnessed this stuff, this is exactly the way it was. Now, there is a little bit of a difficulty with it. Zhukov did not die that day. So, it might not be exactly that day. And I know so because within just, it seemed to me like within just few days or so, supposedly it was Andrew, whoever, they returned on his own to Moscow, whatever it was, and then again they would come and then again they would pick me up. It was something like this, like a very, very short period. Not Andrew alone, but Charles and so on. Quinn again arrived to Moscow. So, with this being said, there's no way I can provide more information about. This is like extremely detailed piece of memory right there. I know even if the Queen was not that day, the way I described that stuff, and I'm pretty 100% certain that she was with the Philip, she then returned again to Moscow to say practically goodbye to Zhukov, wherever the hell this was. Zhukov, however, I do not believe he died. I don't believe that he passed away. They rushed us. It was several times that we would go to hospital, maybe twice more, and then they claimed that he passed away. He supposedly passed away, and in maybe just 2 months within this period. It happened pretty fast. When I think about June 18, June is usually a hot month already. And since it was so sunny at the airport, I have a feeling there was like more of a spring breeze there. It was not so hot. Then Moscow also gets hot. Just like everywhere else, the same thing. Just like you were in the US, whatever. Maybe even hotter in the summertime, I don't know. Hot. But maybe not so hot, really. A little bit less. But yeah, there's a difference also. I learned about going through the airports, different temperatures. And I like the Moscow airport because it was more cool, more breeze, more fresh. In some of the airports, including in USA, obviously, when you go all the way down to fucking Miami, Tampa, Orlando, and so on, it was way hotter. So I didn't like Russia a fucking bit. But there was one thing about the Russia. At the airport, at least, it was not hot. And as a prisoner, as a tortured person, lynched person, you would be surprised how much you do appreciate that fact. Even that fact, especially when the torture is ongoingly involved in that kind of stuff. So this is the final take on that stuff. They did not hesitate. They did not wait. And torture in respect to possibly already deceased, passed away, Zhukov continued to go on as if he was still alive, as if nothing ever happened. But Queen Elizabeth was the one that reminded me. She kept reminding me if I remember Zhukov. So based on Queen Elizabeth account, I can maybe even agree that Zhukov might have passed away in 1974, let's say, because of Queen Elizabeth. And basically, It's also Queen Elizabeth, because of whom I cannot agree that Zhukov passed away in 1974. Because this is so screwed up. Because Queen Elizabeth did not get him out of her mind, and because Queen Elizabeth supposedly was the one who went on the funeral of him, the funeral where I suppose not even was present, and that funeral supposedly took place at a later time. It was done, basically her brainwash was done in such a way so that it would make me regret. And that was basically at a much later time. So I am just giving you as much as a drugged up person possibly could give you based on a Russian brainwash. In my belief, in my personal opinion, I don't have the opinion. It's extremely difficult call to make, because Russians hated me, because Russians went into ballistic mode immediately. They did not hesitate with the memory that I had on Zhukov. On this, they visited Zhukov before with me, but with the memory on Zhukov, they couldn't stand that I would have absolutely any memory about absolutely anything. And so they were just, it appeared to me like they were, Russian people like a people that the way I learned about them is like, this is yours, take it. In 3 minutes, he changed the fucking mind and go, give your fucking money back. This is what I recall from the Soviet, not from the Russian leaders, presidents that I had experience with. This was their attitude. Yeah. Some shit went on and stuff like this, and then it was like some kind of, as if schizophrenia would pop up out of their heads, and they changed their mind all of a sudden. So I went into the first grade of the grammar school when I was 6 years of age. This was 1977. 1978 and 1977 and 1978, 1977 and it was something intensive shit that went on in respect to Zhukov that they started to do when I entered the first grade of the grammar school. Again, it was like if Slovenian teachers would learn about the Zhukov, my whereabouts in Moscow, and they just simply would not make peace with it, but they would start to do some kind of schizophrenia to drive you crazy about. Maybe that's what they were doing for me, not to forget about the Zhukov. But this shit went on all the way to my 8th grade of the grammar school, just as I explained in the video. And in the process of all this stuff, they had what appeared to be a Zhukov. This Zhukov, Georgy Zhukov, was always accompanied by the daughter. It's a fine man, accompanied with the daughter. I started to grow up. When I was in the first grade of the grammar school, I was already adult. Definitely by every mental. I was totally indifferent from adult. I was a spy. Adults don't get to that crazy stage. And this was completely crazy, with the Russian presidents suggesting me, basically reading my mind about the stuff I did not even understood. Like, before I even understood the importance of having witnesses, they would suggest about the presence of the journalists and that they know what I think and stuff like this. This is the stuff that you learn basically once you go to the first grade, second grade of grammar school. And the same shit went on with American presidents. This fine man disappeared of the picture. If this was a Zhukov, if it's to believe that this was a Zhukov. Sometimes in my third grade of the grammar school, second grade of the grammar school, the year must have been then third grade in the grammar school, let's say 1981, 1980. So the possibility exists that he might have still existed. And then this shit pertaining to Zhukov would simply not stop. Then they got 3 drunks on the picture, of which one was way less drunk. That supposedly was even his comrade, war comrade, military comrade, veterans. And it was the stuff that I told you about in the video. Wanted me to bag them for that sword and that kind of stuff. Now, so that you know this is definitely me, this is the message to the Central Intelligence Agency, to the FBI. They're going to say that I'm fucking hallucinating, lying or something like that. We're going to touch the subject of the Khrushchev. We're going to touch the subject of the several Khrushchevs. Or let's touch it briefly of entire family. And like I said, I could have done this for everybody, for every Russian notable person who was involved in MK Ultra. Yeah, it took me 24 hours. Not even 24 hours, but alright, let's do a little bit of the Khrushchev here. So now we do understand each other, right? We do understand each other on British royals, that British royals traveled actively to Moscow, to the Russia already before I was in the picture. We do understand that part. It just became upgraded, probably I'm going to say even in a different sense. I don't get any kind of credits for their visits to Moscow and that kind of stuff, because visits to Moscow, the British royals absolutely existed. There is no point in making myself whatever. No. We're going to call it for what it was, exactly the way it was. So, their visits to Moscow were just something completely ordinary. Those are the non-official visits. It's non-official. You guys don't read about official. Khrushchev, Nikita. Well, Nikita Khrushchev, I am not going to change absolutely anything in respect to Nikita Khrushchev, but I will change in respect to Nikitich Khrushchev. This one here. The Nikitich Khrushchev was based on what I read in the media, and what also he repeated to me time and again. This one ended in the United States of America, as you see right there. But I suspect that Sergei Nikitich Khrushchev immigrated back to Moscow. Yes, let me explain about this stuff. This was an expert on missiles. He played with the weaponry, and his arrival to United States of America through my case was used. He told me that he had to give something to prove his stay in the United States of America. That's basically to the Russians that would arrive on unofficial visits to United States of America, also on unofficial. So whenever there would be a Putin on the picture or a Lavrov, Medvedev, this man would meet them in United States of America. In front of me, he would pass them American military secrets pertaining to ballistic missile, I assume, kind of technology. The year 2020, which is basically his death, as you see, what about the same date as of General Georgy Zhukov, was well planned ahead, beginning the 2012 he started to plan on his death, on his suicide, was twisted into a considerable amount of also torture. He would also have his relatives coming to visit him to United States of America from Russia. While not precisely directly involved in a torture, he definitely have witnessed one. Yeah, he also was directly psychologically involved in it. His relatives did not cut, I should say they did cut corners, they were directly into torture, so this was the stuff that went on. Came up with the idea to commit a suicide already before 2012. It was a long, his idea about committing a suicide go actually way back. Maybe even before he came to United States of America. I gotta see something here. I gotta clarify this stuff here. Oh, I would not want to come out as a complete idiot. So he immigrated in 91 to United States of America. He did not contemplate it. No, I would just hate to say that this suicide thoughts traced his commitment to committing a suicide, that it traced to like I don't know, man, 2008 or something like this, 2007, and it would pop up that he finally came to the United States of America in 2010 or 2012 or something like that. I would not want this shit to look like that. What this is exactly the specialty of these people. This is exactly what their job was to have you say something that could easily be disputed. But these people traveled the world without any fucking passports, to make myself clear about this stuff. Do you understand? You people do not understand what the high diplomacy looks like, but these people sit on a fucking plane and there is people waiting on them at the airport, might not even have to check themselves with customs, etc., etc. Might probably even board the plane, exit planes on a regular basis. They would exit planes before other passengers would exit and stuff like this. They would make stops and all kinds of shit like that with the Putin and so on. If it was a plane that was other people on it, it would be with the diplomats and stuff like this. They would exit completely separately. I would exit with them completely separately, totally in a different ways. So stuff like this was their job. So the suicide, the way that Nikitich explained to me, Sergei explained to me that the way he's going to commit the suicide is because he was very pro-American. And because he was pro-American, and because he was motivated in helping me out, he would file for the suicide. Departure, basically. Disappearance. If you understand me what I'm trying to say. Yeah? That's simply because he was out there to help me out. Because he wanted to help me out, and because of the Russians, pertaining the issue to his family, a Russian side of the family, he would not want to get them in trouble. And of course, it appears to me, since he wanted to help me out, and after that, yes, maybe my death, he would not want the KGB to catch him. He wouldn't want the KGB to know that he's still alive, right? But the reality is, these people are certain I'm not going to be around no more. That's one of the things. And the second thing is, this person had no intention whatsoever to testify absolutely anything for me. Nothing. Zero, nada, zilch. This is the bottom line. This is the reality. He was not afraid of the Russians, etc., etc. There was another problem that rolled inside of his head. A possible departure, return back to the Russia, especially because of his son, a journalist who presented himself as a Ukrainian, repeatedly presented himself as a Ukrainian, and who also was involved in Mount Everest of torture, and also who filed for a fake death certificate. Died at age 47, supposedly. Children: Nikita Khrushchev, the Russian journalist who repeatedly presented himself as a Ukrainian to me, indicated how he was born in Ukraine, in Moscow, in a prison, in a total prison in Russia. I was left with no other belief than that I have one ally with me. That this one disappeared in 2007. Not dead, in my opinion, fake death certificate. And then it gets more interesting. Then you have Julia. So the CIA, FBI is going to have to confirm that about the Sergei Nikitich Khrushchev. Sorry. Yulia Khrushcheva, yeah, he felt lonely, and for that reason, as he contemplated on return to the Moscow, and this shit goes, since his son is dead, and that's exactly what I was correct about when I said 2008, that's probably exactly what took place. Central Intelligence Agency Federal Bureau investigation is going to have to reveal also about this plot. Nikita Khrushchev's granddaughter is killed in Moscow. Wow, this is a beauty right here. No. I mean, when she died, she was 77. But this was one sexy lady. I remember her. You know, I remember her. The husband, she would not want any other than the one she had. Truly loyal to her husband, to her first husband. I tried to hook her up with another Russian guy. I did this best to my abilities, but I don't know what happened. I don't know who gave up. It was an engineer who was interested in her because of me, because I really wanted to hook her up. I didn't want her to be alone. This was a very nice lady, and it didn't work out. This, I tried to hook her up when this was sometimes in like 7th, 8th grade of the grammar school in 1985. I already know what it means to actually make a date. So, Nikita, what I will say to you about the Yulia Khrushcheva, what I can say to you about the Yulia Khrushcheva is that she lived in a house. She had a portion of the house, a room, that was dedicated to her. First, she lived in the room with a Khrushchev. This was like a daughter who lived with Nikita Khrushchev. You know? What the fuck am I talking about? Yeah, Nikita Khrushchev was the president. So, she had a room inside of that house. I live with these people practically inside. I remember the room that she had inside of the parents' house. And she was there also with others. And then I think that she had a different house, and she had like her own apartment in that house. And that house, I believe the rest of the house was from the relatives, which then it was in, she supposedly died in 2017, and that house where she was in, the title of the house was transferred to the children, to the relatives, sometimes in like 2010, I would say. Yeah, 2009, 2008, I can feel the friction. Something happened, 2008. And that relative who got that house was a female, a blondie, also from what I believe was a family Khrushchev. Now, the way this stuff looks like is that none of them had successfully any children, and all the children are gone, with none left on the picture. Simply horrible, horrible stuff. But this is not the reality. You see, this was a Yulia Khrushcheva. Let me also hear a little bit to see the siblings of not Nikita Khrushchev, but his father, Nikitich. The siblings, when it comes to the siblings, we're gonna go to the Rada Khrushcheva. This one here, which is interesting to note that both of the children passed away and none appeared to have children and that kind of stuff. This is not precisely the truth. This is not precisely the truth at all. This is not the truth. I remember every one of them like it was yesterday, no less than that. This one, for instance, clearly appeared to me that had children. Even Ajubi, Jubiduba, even Ajubi. The way the Khrushchevs did this stuff, I believe that he had two of them, is they had, he was in the house, next to the house in the neighborhood were other houses, it's where they would settle their own children. I believe that their own children would also use other than names Khrushchev. Yeah, cool. You don't get to see me, you get to see the screen. Very nice. Fine, thank you. I know so because there was a blondie that I was very interested in, and I think younger generation. I think that she was a Khrushcheva. She was one of the... I have no idea. Maybe this was his daughter or something like that. Neighbors, the so-called neighbors, were definitely interested in. And interesting stuff is that these neighbors, kids, like my age and younger, they keep coming back to us. It looked to me like I would be dealing with the children of these kids, of this people here. I didn't have the feeling that those are really neighbors. The reason for this stuff is that Nikita Khrushchev came to the conclusion that I'm very, very dangerous. The sister of Nikita Khrushchev, Sergei Nikitich Leonid Khrushchev, let me not F myself. I have to make sure about this stuff. Yulia Khrushcheva, Nikita Jubi. Let me see this here. We go back here. Okay. We're gonna go here. It was a beautiful sister. I was crazy about her. Nina Kukharchuk Khrushcheva. She had completely blue hair, blonde. Well, I mean, these people had a very, very light hair they had. And whatever the hell went on with me when I was a child, I liked that. Till shit exploded completely. Now, the shit exploded sometimes in 1979, 1980. With all my schoolmates, with these people visiting Novo Mesto city, school, see everything where I live, everything about me. With the schoolmates, wow, terrible stuff went on. Finally, with Khrushchevs completely turning their backs to me, that I was a racist, that I was a Nazi, and I don't know what the fuck I was. I was absolutely everything, for no schoolmate would want to see me anymore. And these people were simply terrified with me. And so, I see that she perished in 1984. Nikita Khrushchev absolutely did not die. This one supposedly died in 1984. This is the information I'm not going to dispute. I don't have in my head stored any information that I would continue to see her or whatever, but I remember her face. She had a very youthful face, but sometimes in 1981 maybe, because they like me, because I like them so much, she turned completely grim. She became Mrs. Grimm. She was like, it looked like she wanted to choke me, man. Yeah, I mean, it really looked like she wanted to kill me. We had this teacher, his name was Stančić. This is the man who was also inside of the concentration camp. And the stuff that this guy saw in me and what they started to see in me was just the kind of stuff that I changed my opinion about her and the whole bloody blonde culture and absolutely everything pertaining to Russia, because these were the people that were my last allies. And supposedly because of my case, that my case was so damn bad that I became a Mr. Holodomor of the Khrushchev family. So you can see them all dying like fleas, left and right, with what they suggested me in 2017 after supposedly, yeah, this one was I went through the school, through the university with this one. Yulia Bam, 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 bam. I remember Laura when he said to me, "Yeah, that is right. You don't like the Khrushchev. That's why no more for you." And they put in the news that she died. In reality, that relative, that blonde relative that I mentioned to you, on Opportunity in 2017, which started already in 2015, based on brainwash. She was already hit in 2015. In 2015 is when Lavrov gave me the news that Yulia Khrushcheva was hit by the train. And they did this stuff so that I could read in the media, in the news. They threw me in the psychiatric hospital again in 2015, you know. So then you come back home, then you get to read the news from your friends, from Putin and from Lavrov and Medvedev again, about how Yulia Khrushcheva was hit with a train in the Moscow finally. Like 2 years down the road, they brainwash you about her death in advance. That's how fake this family is. This is the most... I don't have the words for it. Now you get the taste, the Russia. Now I have to know the Russia, the real Russia, how is in the Russia. You tell me if he's die or he's not die. This is a fucky business. To me it does make no fucking sense like that. It's very difficult already to be drugged up, subjected to MKUltra, and then you are subjected to some kind of bullshit basically. What is this if not waste of time? It was the blonde relative that I told you about her, who figured out that it would be better for her to go to elder care, into the home for elderly. Although Yulia Khrushcheva was still very dynamic, I didn't see any kind of signs of slowing it down or whatever. But this is exactly what took place. So we have another fake death certificate. It's like I could go on and on and on about this stuff, and I'm not going to be doing this. What is it here? Let me see this here, Nikita. With this one here, let me see this here, Elena Khrushcheva. Elena Khrushcheva, this was a big fucking deal. Elena Khrushcheva. Elena Khrushcheva was like mega fucking deal. About Elena Khrushcheva, I can tell you that Elena Khrushcheva on this family portrait of the Khrushchev, is you can see her with a daughter. You can still see her on a family portrait. Good looking lady, black haired, good looking lady. However, the lady they presented me during MKUltra, oh man, is this shit fucking sick shit, man. This is Russia. That's why, about the Russia, there is nothing to talk about the Russia. Russia is sick country, extremely sick country. This is the sicker than sick. This is sicker than sick shit. This I would not even dare to tell, but right there, maybe in the middle, that would be maybe Elena, who passed away practically when I was maybe not even born, right? Let me just see, let me just make sure about Elena. Yulia Khrushcheva, daughter of Nina Khrushcheva, 1963, she was still around, yes. She perished away in 1970, something like this, just before I was born, in that sense, something like that. So, but this stuff is so fucked up. So, I think that, yeah, that's a Nina and Nikita even, and grandchildren Nikita. show more. Let's go. Elena Khrushcheva. Where the hell is she? So I think that she's right there in the middle. Yeah, the models that they have used, they just look like that. And they were sexy, good-looking Russian ladies that were teasing me. Wouldn't be fucked up, man, if I would say that she was involved and so on and so forth. I mean, you know, when I think about this Ruski, you know, when I think about the Sergei Lavrov, you know, when I think about the Medvedev and all that stuff, when I think about all these guys, I kind of feel that this is like you know what the cheap is? Cheap? I mean, there is not much to say about that stuff. But this is the type of stuff they wanted me to come out and say, yes, Elena was involved in this and that. They use imitators, but based on the age, she was 35 at the time when Elena Khrushcheva passed away. Under no circumstances would it have been possible that, you know, that the lady that would be so attractive that this would be, you know, that this would be the daughter of the Khrushchev. You know, but then again, the age when pertained to MK Ultra and stuff like that, you start to notice really one, like sometimes on a person. It depends how much trauma is done on you. You start to notice that kind of stuff sometimes after age 50, which is normally on the people. It's kind of difficult to tell. So if she was involved in it, this was an attractive lady. There was one lady who was involved in it that also had glasses and stuff like this, and who also could be Elena Khrushcheva, who at the same time she acted like a complete nut, like a nutcase, like a total nutcase. And so there might be actually a possibility that Elena Khrushcheva also had a fake death certificate and continued to live, unless there was a psychopath they involved in it that would just, I don't know, that lady with that black hair for whom Khrushchev claimed that was his daughter and stuff, that this was a family, it appeared to me that she wanted to fucking kill me. Seriously choke me. Because she had a black hair, I guess that I did not like her, maybe something like that. But then they had the black hair Elena Khrushcheva that was younger and that was very sexy, that I actually flirted with her. And there is a high probability that they used her to prove that I was not a racist. So basically they depicted that it was just a matter of the physique. It was not as attractive as other Khrushchevs were attractive. Unfortunately that she had a black hair, in that sense, this is how they... The Elena Khrushcheva was fucking skinny and with the glasses and with basically like somebody that would just want to jump in my face basically and take the eyes out. This is like the best description that I can give. I personally think, and Russians, and actually others who met her are going to have to disclose about that she was a schizophrenic. She had a personality of eccentric personality that would simply therefore what was likely, if there was a real Elena Khrushcheva, a personality that would border, I would say, schizophrenia. Heavy problem with the anger management. All the Khrushchevs had problem with older generation. Not kids. Not kids. Not at all. Children not. Exactly the opposite of the parents. All the older generations of Russians had this problem with impulsivity. And I think that she was carried away too far. The real Elena Khrushcheva, with the fake death certificate, therefore, did appear, and in a second, and in a third grade of the grammar school. And one of the picture just about at the time is her grandmother, the one that the grandmother, the sister of Nikita, who also disappeared off the picture in 1984. 84, the chances are that she did live longer. Although people were dying earlier, these people had a high quality standard life expectancy and so on. So, I think because of her schizophrenic personality that Elena had to be removed of the picture of the Khrushchev. Likely because of me. I was a psychiatrist when I was a baby, when I was a child. Listen, I was a person that literally a president's feared. Royals feared me when I was a child. I told you about how all I wanted to do is wear the uniforms, and I had a taste for the watches, for the women. If I chose a woman, whatever it was, nobody ever complained. Nobody ever complained. Those that married and stuff like this, they stayed married for the rest of their life and beyond. I was a kid baby, that presidents listen. Those that were, that people were extremely afraid of them, like Josip Broz Tito and General Franco and etc., etc. There was a manipulation in it, using me for the stuff, but I had a really good taste somehow. What else did I miss here on this stuff here? Maybe this one here, adopted. That's an adopted daughter is killed by the train. That one is on the left. And then you have maybe the first Khrushchev that maybe really sided with me to the degree that was willing to testify. And I come to conclusion about that stuff simply because Nina Khrushcheva, Kuharcha Khrushcheva, Nina Khrushcheva, professor, she's still in New York, and this is the girl with whom I have gone through entire university, etc., etc. The situation for which I'm going to honestly say to you that she was supposedly interested in marrying me is not even bad-looking lady. Under different circumstances, who knows how this would end. She is, however, 7 years senior to me, 7 years older than me. I feel really bad that I did not marry her. I could actually, when she graduated her university, she's 7 years older than me, but she graduated in 1987, but then she continued to study and stuff like this, and I was already in the United States in 1995, and I don't know, man, it was so many women and everything, and this is something about her that I wanted her to get married to somebody, and the thing is that she couldn't. I have no idea what happened. she suggested that she still had a feelings for me. So this one is a little bit hard. She did travel back to Russia with me, and she was a little bit tough lady, but there was under no circumstances that could be any other way. So probably the only Khrushchev that I would say that was really on my side here probably was Nina Khrushcheva. Maybe all the Khrushchevs were on my side. After all, these people started to change their last names. The relatives, the children, they would never be seen on the picture, man. And when you do the stuff like this, that definitely really is something that you're running away from. So it could be that they became, within the Russian society, maybe they really came under the loop or something like that. I really do not know about that stuff. So I think I did excellent job on this. She wanted me to mention her. She, however, was not happy with war on Ukraine and that kind of stuff, which is the stuff that you can also read in the media, is also the stuff that she is discussing. So there isn't anything else I missed in this video. I could go after the Zhukovs and so on. I'm not going after Zhukovs. I have to go through the stuff again. I did some and look faces and go over and this and that. This shit I could do for many, many years, and it would go for many, many more years. So yes, I hope I clarified the memories on a Zhukov. Yeah, I was there. Undisputedly, I was there. I saw it. I was part of it. Absolutely part of it. Americans remember me who were inside of the Moscow. Probably the two people that American ambassador he did like to drink, that is true. So my bet when it comes to Zhukov is he might have lived until second, third grade of the grammar school. Third grade of the grammar school, 1981. 1981. And he had a daughter who assisted him all the time, who was with him. I'm not going to say anything else in respect to that stuff. I assume that he did came out of the hospital. He somehow did still live. Maybe he was under too much public scrutiny, which places extra pressure on the person, because you cannot decline invitations of the people. This is why elderly people do this fake death certificates. So they escape from the public, so that little whatever they have still left, they can dedicate to their lives. They told me, you will be like that too, because it's impossible, and people resent you and so on. Marvin Kolb, who was in Moscow and who met me, and then there was another Marvin Kolb who was in New York or whatever, in the U.S., who would also meet me and so on. Yeah, he saw me in Moscow, and this is the testimony. The most that he remembered in his lifetime career, according to him, was myself, I, and the meeting with the Zhukov. I remember him in Moscow as a young man. What can I say? That's all I gotta say. I ain't got nothing else to say. I was in the center of all this stuff. The stuff that British royals have done, this is bizarre. They have really, really gone far too far. This is actually truly, truly insane. And I think it defines truly their relationship to the Britain, to the British people as a nation, foremost to the British veterans, to the British patriots, to the British patriotism. For me, it would be extremely difficult to serve to the country under this type of circumstances if I would hear from somebody like myself that this have taken place, have happened to. This is fucking crazy. That's all I gotta say. Thanks for watching this video, and this is summarizing a serious MK Ultra procedure report on Moscow under Russia. I don't like to do, you can understand me, you can feel me, that it's difficult to do, and you know, with that being said, thanks for watching this video. Let me wave you goodbye. Till the next time.